I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Joel Saints. I'm joined by my buddy Gordon Dymowski and my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to talk about The Prisoner. Checkmate is the episode. This is episode 9, if you go in order. But we're not because, hey, screw it.
No. Gordon, I'll let you take this one.
Okay. See, Joel, here's the thing. There's actually no real order to the episodes. There's Arrival is always first, and Once Upon a Time and Fallout are the last two. Now, if you look at it from the way it was shown in England versus the way it was shown in America, those are two different orders. That's the American order is what you see on Tubi.
Right.
But if you look at it from not only McGowan's original intention, but the production history, Free for All comes. It's Arrival, Free for All, Checkmate, Dance of the Dead.
Yeah, imagine if Dark Shadows were shown. You have episode 210, and then 700, and then you cut the parallel time, and then you go back to Adam, and it's that's called the Tubi has the American order. It makes about that much sense when you start to look at the minutia of how the character evolves. I promise, see him change and develop logical action. Dymowski.
Well, here's my question. Okay, I get Tubi shows the American order. My question, and I know you guys don't run Tubi, so maybe this is an unfair question, so I apologize in advance.
No, I run Tubi, so it is an unfair question. It's a very unfair question.
Oh my God. Why not? Because for me, if you have a show, because look, I grew up at a time when horror movies have more than one version of itself. For example, Halloween 2, like John Carpenter's Halloween, there's 2 versions of it. There's the theatrical version and there's the televised version. Halloween 2, there's the theatrical version and the televised version. Now, with this, why doesn't Tubi have the American version where it's shown it in the order I saw it, and the British version where it's shown in the order as intended?
I think because there aren't cuts of the episodes, so for whatever reason, America has stuck with that original CBS order, because that's when the VHS was released. It was released, with kinds of big, so on and so forth. It's like it just got a bad computer program and stuck with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
because tradition.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I have the original, and I have the original A&E DVD release, and they do similar order to what we've been doing, which is Arrival, Free for All, Checkmate. So it does it in that order. And with Tubi, you can just as easily go from episode 1 to episode 9 to whoever that is. So it's not like, I think having 2 different playlists of the same show is kind of redundant and also means double the licensing fees. I mean, it's not like you're, I mean, the reason why, like, I prefer watching it in the order we're watching it is because with the episode we're looking at, you see that progression of number 6 arrives in the village and can't get out. In number 2, we see, okay, the powers that be are trying to manipulate him into becoming part of the leadership. So, of course, what are you going to do? Of course, they fail. In Checkmate, it is a really interesting meditation on power, where we see, starting with the chess game and all through the episode, there's an emphasis on number 6 being just as arrogant as the powers that be. It's talking about how there are dynamics of power and psychology in the village. And number two at the end calls him out by saying, hey, look, you got caught because somebody else did to you what you were trying to do for us, do to us.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a charging issue. Thank you for your patience. Yeah.
I really like the episode. I gotta ask you guys this question: because many shows throughout the '60s, '70s, and '80s had opening theme songs. Where do you rank The Prisoner among other TV shows for theme songs?
It's one of the best. I mean, it is. I would say it's easily in the top 10.
Yeah, I'd say so too.
Just as a piece of music, but then when you add the visuals and the storytelling of that, dude, it's perfect. I mean, it's like all of that great, British TV where, in the case of The Prisoner, there were no bad episodes. I really feel that way. There's some that are better than others, but if you look at other British television, usually that low grade was associated with, they might have been complete crap. Space 1999 comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
UFO. And those opening credit sequences, they nailed it.
Mm. Gordon?
Yeah, plus the Prisoner, the theme was composed by Ron Granier, who is really one of the better television composers. I mean, he composed the theme for Doctor Who.
And Omega Man.
Pardon, I didn't hear that.
He did the music for the Omega Man show.
Okay, see, there you go. So you have to consider that at that time, like now, everything would be a 30-second montage where it's done and over with. There, you needed a way to kind of explain the series for anyone who's watching. I think last time, or I think Patrick and I had a conversation about, and we had this on Twitter, of what episode should be a good starting point for Dark Shadows. Well, with television in the '60s, every episode was somebody's first episode, and so that in that montage at the beginning, even though it goes on for 2 minutes, tells you everything you need to know. And that charging music is just sets the mood.
Yeah, and that's typical of TV of the time because it was, God bless it was modular, and you expected as a producer to create a show that people could pretty much join at almost any point and get. That's why you have theme songs like theme song to Gilligan's Island that explain who you are and where you are and all of that. And it's one of the reasons why this show's Small Wonder is such a dazzling throwback to that era. And it has a theme song that basically explains what you're watching.
Yeah. This episode is really neat. I like how Patrick McGoon has great chemistry with the Rook, who gets taken to the hospital during this episode. I love how they shoot the opening chessboard scene. Really, really well done. The camera work is really excellent in this series, guys. What did you think of it?
Standards are very high. And it was hard to live up to those standards, but you did if you have a choice. That's why there are no bad episodes. His standards for quality were unbelievable on everything he controlled, which was everything. I don't know, Gordon. That's my take. What do you think?
I think it's impressive, especially when you consider that at the time, Port Marion, where they were filming it, was also a tourist. They were getting tourists regularly, so they had to film around the tourists to get some of those shots and not have like some odd, someone coming in and disrupting the scene is just, it's astounding. Plus, it gives you a really good sense of atmosphere. And I think that first 20 minutes, that combined with the dialogue tells you everything you need to know about the episode. It sets up all the stakes brilliantly, and then you can almost see it as like the first 20 is Act 1, the second 20 is Act 2, and the last 20 is Act 3. I mean, it's wonderful in how it sets up these like little. I mean, this whole episode is a chess game, and it's right there in the title. And I think everything just moves spectacularly like clockwork.
It really does. And if you haven't seen this show before, there are 2 episodes, you can catch them. It just visually tells you, just the depiction of the village, again, tells you everything you need to know about this aesthetic of this place.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too with the show. It's not hard to understand. That's the thing about it. I know some people might watch it and not get it, but it's really simple to get. Here's this guy who got caught. He's on an island, but they call it the village, and he's their prisoner, and they want information from him. He's not going to be given it willingly.
The opening credits to that,
right? And the opening credits do a great job of explaining that. And I love how in this episode too, what you have is I always like how they had a new number 2, and I really like the number 2 in this episode. He's very some of the number 2s are playful, and this number 2 is a bit playful, and I like it.
I love the karate moment.
Yeah, he's like evil Zen.
It really is, and I think after the first number 2s, you forget about. I've seen things many times. I don't remember. In the Shadow of Leo McCurn, I especially don't remember him. And even the second number 2, this one is, I feel like, the first anti-sick. He is 2 guys together in a room, and they had to duke it out. Of course, number 6 is going to win because he punches like this. A weird Patrick punch. But so, for doing work for it, he is a really physically and intellectually formidable anti-sick. And the actor, Peter Wingard, I think he had already been on a British show called Department M, and got his own spin-off called Jason King. And if you want to talk about energetic opening credits, go the opening credits to Jason King. For one thing, it really tells you where Mike Myers got a lot of the inspiration for Austin Powers. And Jason King was sort of a swinging mystery writer, super spy figure. And Peter Wingard played that. Wingard had a career in England. He was marketed himself eventually as an incredibly sleazy sex symbol, going so far as to have a hit single, I think it was a hit, called Rape, where he talked about all the different ways he raped people. And it was acceptable. It was considered puckish back then. Well, Wingard really got in trouble. You know what happened to Wingard?
I know he had a kind of a career break for a while. I also know it didn't help that I think, and I may be misremembering, but he had disclosed that he was openly gay. And so
What happened was that he later had to, because the career break happened, tried to come on to the wrong guy in a station men's room or something.
Oh, okay.
And was caught. And this was in the early 70s. It's important to note that at that time, homosexuality was in England. That's why in Rocky Horror song, "It Ain't No Crime," when Rocky is created and is running around, it ain't no crime and all that. That's what that song's about. And so Wingard, I don't know if he went to jail or what, but he got in a lot of trouble, and his career was ruined. he had to come out at that point. And it's funny because just a few years after that, he did get the role of the major villain Darth Vader thug figure in a huge, big budget, Euro trash science fiction epic, Flash Gordon. But he had to, and Peter Winger is such a handsome man, he had to play the part in a mask.
Yeah.
And so, it's a really sad irony that he gets what could have been a career-saving break, and he had to do the damn thing in a mask.
Wow.
Wingard. Yeah, it's a complex story.
What's your favorite moment in this episode, guys?
I can go. For me, it's the sputtering climax at the end. It's the twist where we realize, everybody realizes that, oh, you're not. They just used our paranoia against us, and yeah, it's like, well, after free for all and after Arrival, you have learned to be paranoid. Well, guess what? We can use that against you. Think you can solve this problem? No, we're going to be 2 steps ahead. We're going to use all your reflexes against you. And when both of the guys, number 6 is onto it before the other guy is, but the realization, oh, you really were a prisoner.
Yeah, that's my favorite scene because it it shows not just that not only can paranoia be used against him, but the Rook. And it's interesting that Magoon's character never calls them either by numbers or asks for their names. He's like Rook, Bishop, whatever. But Rook realizes that, oh, hey, he used the same, he sussed that number 6 was part of the leadership, but he's screwed because no, number 6 was just another prisoner. And that's particularly heartbreaking.
Yeah, number 6 is too smart for his own good and convinced, no one who's this smart is not in on it.
Mm.
And what a commentary on our suspicious regard for intelligence.
Yeah.
And you can trace that all the way to COVID, where suddenly Joe Average had to rely on the guy he was up in 6th grade to save his ass, because that guy paid attention in school, was now a doctor, and had tremendous resistance to that. This anti-intellectual heritage, something I think is wonderful that we're talking about it. That's the subtext of the episode.
Mm-hmm. My favorite part in other than the chessboard, I really like the when they're doing the SOS and he's Magoon's crumbling the paper.
Yeah, that's like a standard trope in a lot of like early television, is that you'll sometimes see it done in modern times with a cell phone. And it's like, I'm heading under a tunnel. I can't hear you. Well, that's where they got that start from. It's crinkling paper, and I'm trying to find a sheet of paper so I can demonstrate. But yeah, it's just a common like, okay, how do we get them to not say their position? Just make noise and pretend it's static. But it is kind of clever.
It is, especially because it reminds me of like some old school radio tactic you hear. And so I appreciate it being in this episode because this is really cool.
It gives you an idea also of what it would have been like to work with number 6 when he was, in whatever job he was, at Subway or wherever it was, when he quit Burger King. But by then, did you realize at first when you got paired with this guy, you would have thought, he's the most intense, over the top, dot every I, cross every T, kind of jerk I have to deal with. And then you realize, no, he is the funniest, most cutting, most countercultural guy in the service. And now that I'm on his good side, not only are we going to kill a lot of people, but life's going to be a lot of laughs as we do it.
Yeah, you can't believe that this is the same guy who 5 years previously starred in The Scarecrow of Romney Marsh for The Wonderful World of Disney.
Which is a great idea for a limited series. I find to be unwatchably boring. I have tried, and it's like a big bottle of Somonex.
I'm sticking with the book because it's public domain and I can just imagine McGowan in it. You know what I mean?
Sure. I'm sorry, I got a else has gone public domain lately.
Let's see. I'm just trying to remember. Nothing major of note. Let me go do a little bit of a Google search. I know that General's public domain, the Keaton film. Safety Last by Harold Lloyd. The Great Gatsby is now public domain. I don't think anything major has come out this year, but I'm doing a quick Google.
I've seen some YouTube videos that are talking about all the stuff that's on public domain. So I know, you're a pulp
Winnie
guy.
the Pooh is now public domain.
Well, that's how they did that Winnie the Pooh horror thing.
The first Hardy Boys book is public domain.
The Hardly Boys.
Right. The final installment in Marcel Proust's series is public domain. Metropolis the movie is public domain.
Great.
What
else?
Let's see. The Jazz Singer is public domain. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is public domain. And that's just a small sampling.
There we go. Mm-hmm. More everything.
Is Mickey Mouse public domain? Didn't they let that go?
Not until next year, and there's going to be a fight about it.
Yeah.
Although John Oliver did do a story where in one of his episodes he had mentioned this, and he knows that Disney's going to fight, so he had been including the image on his intro credits for several episodes this season. And his Mickey Mouse is very nasty talking and kind of he then this last week did a special on the history of Chuck E. Cheese. And he was offering Chuck E. Cheese the opportunity to revise their business with a new crap talking mascot, public domain Mickey Mouse.
I didn't think a rat was an appetizing mascot.
Well, here's the thing. Originally, it was going to be Coyote Pizza, so they ordered a costume. The costume looked more like a rat. So it's going to be Ricky Rat's Pizza, but rats and pizza don't go together. So they created Chuck E. Cheese.
Got it.
And for the people viewing on YouTube, this is education that we're giving you for free. So this, subscribe to Jules' channel, follow him on Twitter.
Language of shared metaphor.
My what?
It's the language. It's why pop culture talk matters, because it's about the language of shared metaphor that we use to communicate, and largely to communicate judgment on things instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
You say, real Eddie Haskell. Well, if you know Eddie Haskell, then you've communicated a vast amount of information about someone in a very brief period of time.
Sometimes proven pre-existence of something depends on who your lawyer is. And if you want proof of that, go ask Eric Bischoff in WCW, because Scott Hall was in WCW as the Diamond Stud before he was in WWF as Razor Ramon. Mm-hmm. And now Scott Hall did not talk as the Diamond Stud because Diamond Dallas Page was his manager, and Dallas did all the talking, but all the mannerisms of the movements and the moves and the look, that was the Diamond Stud. And when WWF sued WCW because when Scott Hall came back to WCW, they said, "Oh, he's talking like Razor." Well, here's the thing: that's how Scott Hall actually sounds. So there's like you're suing somebody over the way they talk. And here's the thing: you know what WWF won in that lawsuit?
No.
The WWF won the right to be the first ones to bid for WCW if they went out of business. Guess who got WCW? Vince McMahon.
Could have been the Church of Scientology.
Oh my God. But what I like the fight scene in this episode. I like the boat scene in general because it looked very claustrophobic, but they did great camera work in it.
And they also shot day for night, which when you look at it, you can't believe they shot day for night.
Yeah, they're better at it than Curtis, who also loved day for night, but it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. What's with this episode? What did you guys always make of how, like, number 2's headquarters was this green dome?
It's always the Green Dome. That's just a identifiable landmark, and I don't know if there's any more metaphorical significance than Fort Marion has a big green dome. I don't know about the Green Dome.
Well, I do know that when the town was created, it was created by a Welshman who had visited a villa in Italy that kind of has a similar architecture. And he was like, I want that kind of feel, but I want it in Wales. So he basically worked to develop that in Wales. And I think having the green dome, not only does it make it distinctive, I don't know the exact history of that dome, but I think it gives it more of a sense of ominousness because you don't know where everyone else lives. Like the geography of the prisoner is such that you're never quite sure where people are located. Like there's a store, there's like a shot of a map, but you never really get a sense of bearings. But you always know where number 2 is because that's the green dome.
Yeah. What did you guys think of them using a place where people like to go to vacation for the prisoner? I think it was really neat.
Perfect. It's so inviting.
Yeah.
In a post-Disneyland society, and I just there were world fairs every 10 minutes back then, and so on, and so this idea of kind of international mishmash, Epcot, associated with vacations, and it gives it this sense of, gosh, culture in the Western world might have had something like this. I mean, if I were to shoot the president today, I'd shoot it at Epcot. Or an Epcotian type place, where every 10 feet it's a completely different geography and culture.
Yeah, I also think it helps that McGowan first caught wind of the site when he was shooting Danger Man, because there was an actual episode that was shot at Port Marion. And so he was struck with the site, and it was a big financial risk for the producers because all the other ATV shows like The Avengers, Man with a Suitcase, like every one of those were filmed in and around their studio, like within 2 miles. They were going to have to send an entire crew and supplies all the way over to Wales and film out there with very little like hands-on control. But I think Port Marion also gives it a vaguely sense of dislocation because there's no real like we've talked about the Collinwood, the 1995 sequence at for Dark Shadows, where some of the shots in the first episodes, there's a lack of spatial geometry, where it's just very chaotic. Something's happened. Here, it's kind of hard to get your bearings. It's not a complaint. It's just, I think it's meant that way to disorient the people within the village. And if it's disorienting them, it's going to disorient us.
It's very it's very isolated, and it's meant to look that way too. Even like not in this episode, but many happy returns when he's getting brought back, and you see the plane, like the jet bringing them back, and you see how isolated it looks. It really gives that feeling of holy shit.
Yeah, to get to Fort Erie, it's a apparently a real journey. You know, you take a train for a certain amount, and then you get out, and then you have to get in a cab, and that it's not, there's not a train station right next to it.
No. It looks really cool. I mean, the fact that they have, I love how the ocean really looks too, and it's a really cool location. And it looks like you guys said, it looks sort of inviting.
It does, sure.
Oh my gosh. I have no more questions. I'm going to let you guys take over. Go ahead.
I said a lot of pertinent. I mean, I yeah.
I mean, the only thing I will mention is I think it's interesting that um, the whole subplot involving the woman falling in love with number 6. Um, I think it's because it's one thing you can kind of see where she's like. I'm sure they didn't know that she had tried to like say, "Hey, help me escape, I can help you escape." And he says, "No, you're a waste of time." Because had they known that, would they have even tried the whole? Well, let's hypnotize her into thinking that McGowan is this lovely, sexy dude that she wants to be with.
She's a fangirl.
Yeah.
She's a number 6 fangirl. And that has certain almost shades of misery at certain parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's interesting to see because McGowan doesn't, the prisoner doesn't emphasize a lot of romance, and McGowan was dead set against that in media. But it seems like that's probably the one kind of nitpick that I would have is that I'm not sure that whole I'm not sure that element would have been. I know why they needed to do it because there had to be a way to get one of the pieces to when they're building their magic radio. I also think that casual robbery, just casual snatch and grabs, are a big problem in the village, especially if you're an electrician.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But yeah, that's probably the one where it's not that I didn't think it was wrong, but I think it's like number 6 gleans a little too quickly that there's something wrong rather than like being like I think most men would be like, I don't know what this person's deal is. We've only talked a few times. I need to stay away rather than playing up to her. But I think it may be more a sign of the lead's influence than of the actual writing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell too with McGowan's character, he's not trying to engage her from a romantic sense either. And again, I mean, you could look at the character and go, he literally, like I said before, he literally before Stone Cold Steve Austin did DTA. Patrick McGowan did DTA better, but
yeah. I must sign on. You guys can keep going.
Okay.
But there's something I need to take care of.
Okay.
Okay.
See you, Patrick.
Be seeing you.
Be seeing you. But I really like the fact that I like their brief chemistry on the chessboard together with the woman. It's really well done, especially the way they shoot it. What did you think of that? Like, I like how she's talking to him, and he's talking about escape. And she's like, and he's like asking her questions too about who's that person, what's his deal, and she's actually answering him too. So she does give him some answers, not necessarily every answer he wants. But what did you think about that, Gordon?
Well, I think what this I think in the episode they're trying to establish that because they're establishing there's a difference between. I think very early on, Patrick McGowan says, I think it's in Arrival where he says, "I'm going to determine who are the prisoners and who are the warders. You know, who's in charge and who are the who are the people who aren't in power and who are the people who are in power."
Yeah.
And I think for him, that's a test to see, is she part of the power structure? Or is she there is she serving the power structure? Or is she like him, just another prisoner? And so I think he's testing her.
Yeah.
So that just like, because soon after that, he leaves, and she follows him with, "Oh, are you trying to escape? Let me help you. Let me help you."
Yeah.
And so I think there's that, because McGowan's character comes at it with such a forceful personality and such a force and such a dynamic, direct presence. You could easily see that if another character had been given the lead of number 6, McGowan could have easily guest starred as number 2.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the series is starting to lay the possibility, which will be explored in later episodes, that McGowan, that number 6 is not just that he's not only fighting the powers that be, he has the potential to become the powers that be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because in this episode too, sort of the way their suggestion, the Rook thinks, "So you're just another one of them," and it's really well done too, because he forgets to sort of distance himself from the power structure in a sense, where like, and I don't think this is just some mistake. I think this is just done on purpose, beautifully written, by the way, to again he more fools himself because he forgets to tell like, "Hey, I'm not." He should have took the chance of, "This is my name. This is my real name," but he doesn't, because he's so paranoid of everybody else. He doesn't do it, which I like to a degree, because it gives that sort of, man, he really, I would describe him as very much a lone wolf. I mean, he doesn't, and he's great in it. Like McGowan's character being a lone wolf is awesome, because you like to see that kind of character. But there should have been that moment where he tells him his name. He doesn't. I'm not nitpicking. I like the fact that he doesn't, but I think it's one of the mistakes the character makes.
Well, I think it's the character may be making that mistake,
Right.
but I think it's also deliberate on a number of things. First off, I think number 6 is so headstrong on, "I don't want to be here. I want out.
Yeah.
I'm getting out." I don't think he's even thinking about. I don't think I don't even think he has a concept of who number 6 truly is at that point. You know what I mean? His personality is taking over. I think the fact that he's not a man who seems very introspective. Because most people would stop and think, "Hey, am I using the same tactics?" I mean, if you or I were in that situation, we'd probably at some point think, "Okay, am I acting like the people who are who are jailing us unfairly, or are we?" We would act out of empathy, not because here's the thing. In that episode, and it's very subtle. You don't notice it until you watch it closely. The people he gets on board, there's no names. It's not like, "What's your name? What's your name?" It's not even, "Okay, you're number so and so, you're number such and such." It's Rook, Bishop.
Yeah.
That, I think, is really telling. That he doesn't even see these people as, they're not even people. They're just means to an end. And you could easily see him, had that ship not been a village ship, you could have seen him easily floating off and leaving them behind.
Yep. And that's the thing too. Like he is sort of more using them the way they use people too. And I don't think it's something he's doing deliberately. He's, like you said, he's just so focused on escape, on getting out. And earlier in this episode, like Rook here, Bishop here, this here. Well, he addresses them, like you said, he addresses them as that. He doesn't address them as their numbers. He doesn't ask them their goddamn name. He's just so focused on his goal. And so in being that focused and that sort of tunnel vision, if you will, he he sort of causes his own downfall later in the episode. But
and the episode does a really good job of like putting in scenes where you've got number 2 talking to the psychiatrist, where they're talking about, with, the woman where, they bring her in and she's obviously drugged. And they said, well, we're doing something that's based on research with dolphins, like putting transistors in their brains, but we haven't gotten that far with humans yet. So this is the next best thing. There's also the scene with the Rook in the lab where he's thirsty and they shock him.
Yep.
Or he's trying to get water. I mean, there's I think this episode is really trying to make the point that at this point, number 6 is morally like if number 2 and his type are like over the line, number 2's pretty close to straddling that line.
Yeah.
And I think it does a really good job of. I mean, this is one of those episodes I never really liked until I sat down and watched it. Mm-hmm. And when you see how it's built and how it's constructed, it's also the first script not written by McGowan. It's written by a gentleman named Gerald Kersey, who did a lot of 60s shows. He's kind of the best I could determine is he was a staff writer at ATV. Mm-hmm. And you see how this isn't just, it's more than just, because McGowan's not behind it, you can tell that the focus isn't necessarily, okay, what do I do to make myself look good? What do I do with this character? Mm-hmm. And what you kind of see is that the village is such a, I don't want to, I'm trying, it's like, you can't afford to be a moral person at the village. You either conform or you're hospitalized. Yeah. There's a very, and I like the fact you had brought up the fact that it's a vacation spot.
Yeah.
I think there's something about it being a vacation spot because it looks so casual makes it more threatening.
Yeah.
Like if you had a prison with walls and, we've all seen Shawshank Redemption, it's like, okay, we've seen enough prison movies that we know that's not going to be necessarily threatening. Mm-hmm. But a place like that where it's kind of it's kind of like it gets under your skin a little bit because people being very conforming and especially at the introduction where the guy with the stick, the old guy, who that conversation I like because it sets off the entire theme. Where why didn't you escape? No one escapes. But it's that kind of, you can tell that guy, I think that guy was a plant, and I think number 2's plan was just, okay, let's see how far we can take this guy. Because if we can bring him down, he'll confess why he resigned.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, the psychology of the prisoner is really, really good. And the fact that in this episode, too, when he's talking to the girl on the beach, and now she's like flirting, she's heavily flirting with him, and she goes, I have a picture of you, you gave it to me. And it's just like, I sort of wonder, here's a question I forgot to ask you and Patrick, but I'll ask you. Do you think that they sort of hypnotize her on purpose to throw him off at all?
I think they hypnotized her because they figured, okay, what's he going to do? At some point, he's going to either that he'll be so busy with dealing with this person that he's going to forget about any other issues. So I don't, or that he'll be like, okay, well, I've got this person here. She's willing to help. Why not? So I think they hypnotized her mostly to kind of figure out a way to track him.
Yeah.
I think he's just, but number 6 is paranoid enough that it's like, okay, when she says, hey, you gave me this locket, he goes, because that came, for me, it came a little too easily, but again, our show, you got to do something. Because it's like, oh, okay, let me show you the locket. Oh, okay, can I have it? I want to put a better picture of myself in it. Which I kind of wonder what happens after he's brought back.
Yeah.
And like, okay, what happens to her? Do like take her back and unhypnotize her? Do they do worse stuff to her? And that, I think, is the real kind of, I mean, that's and the sad thing is it makes the point that for number 6 and like the upper echelons uh of the village, people are means to an end. They're not ends in and of themselves. They're collateral damage. They're pawns. I mean, that final shot of the butler grabbing the pawn off the console and putting it back on the chessboard. That especially when McGowan started the episode serving as the queen's pawn, and then the I think the place where he puts the pawn back is where the queen's pawn goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how the queen's pawn is on the boat.
Well, I think it's kind of I think it's number 2's way of taking a subtle dig at number 6.
Yeah.
Because even though he's assigned a white pawn, as the old guy says in the beginning, I needed to learn how to tell the whites from the blacks, which now is an awkward sounding piece of dialogue.
Yeah.
But I think that with the chess metaphor, it makes sense. You're trying to deal with who do you know is on your side and who's opposing you.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way.
Yep.
But I think this whole episode really is about, I think one of the big themes is, at least for me, it's about, okay, how do you know when you're acting in your own best interest? And for me, it's all about power and authority. And how do you leverage that authority in a way that is healthy, but also the dangers of, if you're fighting against an intractable enemy, how do you fight without necessarily adopting your enemy's tactics? Or do you deliberately choose to do it knowing full well it will cost you? And I think that this is one of those episodes that is, I mean, it's a really beautiful watch, but it's easy to get lost in the images without necessarily seeing what's going on underneath.
Yeah. It's really a good episode. It's fantastic. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
No, just that tubetv.com, The Prisoner, it's free for anyone to watch. It does have ads, but if you use a browser with an ad blocker like Brave, it just becomes a little blip.
Yeah. I don't mind the ads at all,
Yeah,
I mean?
free with ads. I'd rather have free with ads than like Peacock, where it's $4.99 with ads, $9.99 without ads.
Yeah.
But ad blocker works on, but the Brave browser, the ad blocker works on Peacock too. Just saying. I would never condone. Tubi I'm okay with because you get it free.
Free, yeah.
But I would never condone piracy. Never.
Yeah, Tubi's free. It's a free app. Link to Gordon's Amazon page is going to be in the description box. Link to the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound is going to be in the description box. You got to pick that up. Gordon, Patrick signed off earlier, so shout out to him. Gordon, buddy, when's your next available date for another episode of The Prisoner, and which one are we doing next?
Well, let's see. Let me look at my calendar. Yes, friends, you're getting all the nice, hot, exciting web browsing action. That's what you come here for. You don't come here for the conversation about Dark Shadows or Patrick McCray's wit. No, you come to watch a dude browse. Okay, so looking at, are you available Sunday?
Let me see. Yes.
Okay, so why don't we do Sunday night?
Okay.
And I think for our next episode, let's do Dance of the Dead.
Okay. I will rewatch Dance of the Dead and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, because it's the episode we almost lost because
Really?
The way that what had happened was the episode wasn't coming together the way McGowan wanted.
Yeah.
And one of the editors who was working off was looking at the footage and said, I think I can do something with this. And he just like added like a couple of random shots and there's the episode. Plus, I think, as Patrick hinted in our last conversation, Dance of the Dead also is also figuratively where the village kind of says you're no longer an issue. So I think that putting it here, it feels appropriate because then I think everything else we can kind of, we can just follow along and then towards the end do the kind of the last few. So let's do Dance of the Dead.
I'm gonna message Patrick about this one. Pick 17 modern people because there were 17 episodes of The Prisoner. Pick 17 people you would want as a number 2 in a modern prisoner.
Okay, you mean anyone from the episodes?
No, just like if they rebooted The Prisoner, like pick 17 modern like today's actors of who would you want as a number 2 in like because there were 17 different episodes. And my only rule I'm applying is don't use the same person twice.
Okay. I don't know if I can come up with 17, but
Okay.
I know one person has just passed away, Lance Reddick.
Yeah.
Let's see. I would want, and I'm going to mispronounce her name. She played Christian on The Expanse, Shore Agadashu.
Oh.
Because she played Christian is a very politically minded woman who projects this kind of warmth. But she likes using the F word a lot, and I love the character.
Cool.
Let's see who else. I would probably. There's a British actor. He starred on Hustle named Adrian Lester. He played. It's kind of a British version of Leverage, where he played a con man, but he's really good at shifting between roles. I'd want him. I would want. Let's see. Vincent D'Onofrio, I think, would make it very interesting. I think he'd be the Leo McKern of a rebooted Prisoner.
Yeah, he's really good.
Let's see. I will say Peter Capaldi, because I think he could be. Let's see, other female. I'm trying to think of female actresses who would play the role. Okay, this is. I'm kind of going on the same tip with Vincent D'Onofrio. His co-star in Law and Order: Criminal Intent, Catherine Irby.
Yeah,
I would have her because she'd be interesting. Let's see. I think just for funsies, let's have the Moz as a number 2, just for fun. I'd want to see a professional bad guy wrestler in that role. Because you're not going to get John Cena for it.
No.
You're not going to, but the Moz would be perfect. I would pay cash money to see that.
I got one for it. I don't know if this actor's still alive, but Michael Desbarius, who played Murdoch.
Oh yeah, I know he's. Oh, Michael Debar would be wonderful. Murdoch on MacGyver, yeah, he would be absolutely wonderful. Trying to think who else would be. Derek Jacobi would be wonderful. I'm just trying to think. It's not that I don't know. No, let's see. It's like oh, Michelle Forbes.
Yeah.
She'd be an interesting number 2. I think Patrick McCray should be number 2. So even though he's not an actor, let's throw him in.
Well, why not? Because I think Patrick McCray should play Mr. Best.
So yeah, and plus, he would have a charm about him. He'd probably be like, okay, we're gonna discuss old musicals of the 1930s, and number 6 say, okay, you got me. That could be the final episode right there. Ooh, I can't think of 17 right now. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously a bunch that we think we would do, but I would I gotta go with them. But I'm standing by the Maz. I think having a good professional wrestler, bad guy wrestler in the role would be interesting.
Yeah, it would. I think you at least have one wrestler. I won't pick a British. I won't pick a completely known wrestler, because I think if you try to get a big name to do it, they probably wouldn't. But I would probably go with somebody like maybe a Glenn Jacobs who played Kane, or if not him, I could see Stone Cold Steve Austin doing it if you paid him the money. He'd be a good number 2.
I just thought of another actor, Keith David.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Oh, Gabrielle Anwar from Burn Notice.
Oh yes, she would definitely. John Delancey.
Yep. Yeah. I could see Bruce Campbell for fun. Bruce Campbell would be number 2, because I mean he's good in everything I've seen. I've seen him in. So I'm trying to think of the one actor. Can't think of his name. Oh God. I don't even know if he's still alive, but he played Bruce Campbell's partner or sidekick on The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. I forget the guy.
He's passed. Julius Harry III.
Yeah.
Yeah, he passed on years ago.
Oh wow. That sucks. God, I don't have 17.
Oh, I thought of another one. Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah.
Especially based on season 1 of The Boys.
Yeah. Definitely Elizabeth Shue. I do have a big name. Jamie Lee Curtis could be a really great number 2.
Yeah. I could see that.
I mean, she's good at being a villain, which she wants to be. But I don't have 17 actors in my head right now, but I'll get back to you for sure.
Yeah, I think we've got a pretty good list.
Yeah. For Gordon Dymowski, I'm Joel Sains. Again, links to Gordon's Amazon page will be in the description box. Link to the Dark Shadows Day book on Bound will be in the description box. Gordon, good night, buddy.
Good night.